I'd been working as a night greeter at Walmart for only a few weeks, but I was already regretting it. The night shift was lonely, with just a handful of employees working, and almost no customers except for the occasional late-night shopper. I thought it would be an easy, low-stress job, but something about the store at night made my skin crawl. Then there was the visitor. Every night around 3 a.m., he would show up. I first noticed him a few days into my shift. A man wearing an old, worn coat, his clothes dusty as if he hadn't changed them in years. He would walk into the store and stop just a few feet from me, staring directly at me with a blank, unblinking gaze. At first, I thought he might need help, but he never spoke. He just stood there, watching, his eyes dark and hollow. I tried greeting him, asked if he needed assistance, but he remained silent, his gaze fixed and unchanging. After a minute or so, he'd turn and leave without a word, his steps slow and deliberate. This continued every night, and with each encounter, I felt more disturbed. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeply wrong with him, something unnatural. The way he stared, unblinking, was as if he was trying to see right into my soul. One night, I decided enough was enough. I couldn't bear another silent encounter. So, when he arrived at 3 a.m. as usual, I waited until he was close, then tried confronting him, demanding to know what he wanted. But as I approached, he began to change. His features blurred, shifting, his hollow eyes darkening further, and a faint, eerie smile twisted his lips. My heart pounded as I reached out, only to find that my hand passed right through him, like he was made of smoke. The figure leaned closer, his eyes burning with sinister intensity, and whispered in a raspy voice, "See you soon." The following morning, I didn't show up for my shift. My colleagues searched for me, finding my greeter vest on the floor at the entrance, a single bloody handprint smeared across the Walmart logo. Security footage showed me walking toward the man, then stumbling backward, as if struck by an unseen force, before vanishing altogether. After that, the greeter's stand stayed empty, haunted by the memory of the night greeter and the strange visitor who seemed to come from another realm. I went to Walmart late one evening, just before closing time. The place was unusually quiet, almost empty, with just a few employees scattered around, restocking shelves or manning the registers. After a long day at work, I figured I'd grab a few essentials. A carton of milk, some eggs, and coffee, so I wouldn't have to come back the next day. This was supposed to be a quick trip, in and out. But once I had everything and started heading toward the front, something felt off. I couldn't find the main aisle to lead me back to the registers. Instead, I found myself wandering through one aisle after another, each one somehow leading me deeper into the store. Confused, I stopped, trying to retrace my steps, but every aisle looked identical, with towering shelves filled with products I hadn't even known Walmart sold. As I kept walking, frustration turned to unease. I realized that no matter which way I turned, I seemed to be getting farther from the front. The lights above me flickered occasionally, casting strange shadows along the shelves, and the air felt colder, heavier, like I'd entered a part of the store that was long forgotten. I called out, hoping someone might hear, but my voice just echoed back, swallowed by the vastness around me. The silence felt unnatural. I checked my phone, no signal, which was weird, considering I'd had full bars when I walked in. Panic started to creep in as I picked up my pace, nearly jogging down the aisles, desperate to find anything familiar. After what felt like hours, I stopped to catch my breath. That's when I saw them, shadowy figures appearing at the end of the aisle. At first, I thought they were ordinary shoppers, but as I squinted, I noticed their movements were unnatural, jerky, almost robotic. Their faces were blank, hollow, as though they were imitating people but weren't truly human. My heart pounded as I turned and ran, weaving through the aisles. Behind me, I heard the faint shuffle of footsteps, getting closer. No matter how fast I moved or how many turns I took, the figures kept following, drawing closer with each step. I glanced back and saw their hollow eyes fixed on me, mouths slightly open as if they were trying to speak, but no words ever came. I ran until my legs gave out, collapsing near a towering display of cereal boxes. I clutched my phone, hoping for a miracle, and checked the time. It was still exactly the moment I'd first entered the store. Time hadn't moved forward at all. Reality felt warped, twisted, like I'd been trapped in some kind of loop. As my vision blurred and exhaustion overtook me, the figures finally reached me, their cold hands reaching out, empty eyes staring down as they surrounded me. The next morning, the only trace of me was my abandoned cart, halfway down an aisle, as if I'd vanished into thin air. Security footage later showed me entering the store, wandering the aisles, and then gone. Just gone. Lost somewhere in the endless labyrinth of Walmart. I was in Walmart that night, trying to finish up my shopping quickly. It was around midnight, and the store was practically deserted. I liked it that way, less noise, fewer people to bump into. But as I wandered the aisles, I started to feel off. It was like someone was watching me. You know that prickly feeling on the back of your neck? That's exactly what I had. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to paranoia. But as I reached for a can of soup, I swear I saw a shadow out of the corner of my eye, just down the aisle. When I turned to look, though, no one was there. Just rows of canned goods and an eerie silence that seemed thicker than usual. The sense of being watched wouldn't leave me alone. Every time I moved to a new aisle, it felt like someone was just a few steps behind. I thought maybe it was an employee stocking shelves or a late-night shopper, but there were no sounds. No footsteps, no cartwheels squeaking, nothing. It was like I was completely alone, except for whatever was following me. After a while, I started to get really unnerved. I turned a corner and thought I saw a figure at the end of the aisle. A person, maybe dressed in black, just standing there. My heart was pounding, and I wanted to call out, but something held me back. Instead, I decided to keep moving, hoping that if I ignored it, it would go away. But it didn't. No matter where I went, I kept catching glimpses of that figure out of the corner of my eye. I'd look, and it would be gone, only to reappear in the next aisle. The worst part was, the closer I got to the exit, the closer it seemed to get to me. I could almost feel its cold presence breathing down my neck, like it was right behind me, silently daring me to turn around. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I broke into a run, pushing my cart as fast as I could toward the front of the store. As I reached the checkout, I dared to glance back. The aisle was empty, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had been following me was still there, hiding in the shadows, watching me even now. I practically threw my items at the cashier, who looked at me like I was crazy. I didn't care, I just wanted to get out. As I walked through the sliding doors, I felt a strange, suffocating weight lift off my shoulders, like I'd escaped something terrible. But the minute I got to my car, I looked back and saw nothing, just an empty, brightly lit store. But as I drove home, I glanced in my rearview mirror, and there, in the back seat, was a faint shadow, barely visible in the dark, watching me. I turned around in panic, but there was nothing, just an empty car. Since that night, I still feel it sometimes, late at night, lurking in the corners of my vision, waiting. I used to work the late shift at Walmart, and the stockroom was my least favorite place. The harsh fluorescent lights, the rows of stacked boxes. It all felt lifeless and cold, like a graveyard for products that hadn't made it to the shelves. There was always something unsettling about it, especially late at night when I'd be the only one there, organizing boxes or moving inventory. One night, I was in the back, putting away some new arrivals when I started hearing these faint noises. At first, it sounded like footsteps, slow and deliberate, somewhere just out of sight. I thought maybe another employee was back there with me, but when I looked around, there was no one. The footsteps continued, growing louder, closer. I tried to convince myself it was just the building settling or an echo from somewhere else, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me. I called out, asking if anyone was there, but only silence answered me. Suddenly, the lights started flickering. I stood there, frozen. As the flickering turned into full-on strobe lights, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance across the walls. I thought about running, but something held me there, like I was rooted to the spot. The shadows grew darker, moving in strange patterns, almost forming shapes that twisted and shifted with each flash of light. Then I saw it, a figure standing at the end of the aisle. It was tall, dark, with features that were indistinct, like it was made of smoke. I blinked, hoping it was a trick of the light, but when I opened my eyes, it was still there, moving closer. Its form kept shifting, becoming something monstrous, unnatural, with eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dark. My heart was pounding as I stumbled back, trying to find my way to the door. But every time I turned, the layout seemed to change, trapping me deeper in the stockroom maze. The shadow figure grew closer, its footsteps echoing louder, almost like a heartbeat pounding in my ears. Finally, I broke into a full sprint, running blindly through the aisles. I burst through the doors and into the main store, gasping for breath, my hands shaking. When I looked back, the figure was gone, but I could still feel its presence, lurking somewhere just beyond my line of sight. After that night, I couldn't go back to work. I tried explaining what happened, but no one believed me. They said it was just stress or lack of sleep. But I know what I saw. Every now and then, late at night, I feel that same presence, watching me from the shadows, waiting. And I know it's only a matter of time before it finds me again.